Hey y'all, welcome to the Filling Station. Another day, right? It has been an interesting day. So we're gonna do this as more so like a recap as to how the market went today, right? And let me go ahead and give my disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I just enjoy teaching people how to build generational wealth in the stock market. It's just one of those avenues. This video is for educational purposes only. With that being said, y'all, let's get started, right? So it's been an interesting ride today with the market, right? It seemed like this morning with the spy, we had an indicate you were thinking that maybe the market was going down. And when I did my pre-market video, it seemed like it was, and then the market spy start trending, going back up. When that 5 and 50 crossed at 11 o'clock, I knew then, okay, we got something is going on with this market. We consolidated 5 and 50 crossed, and if you make your entries on the 30 minutes, totally up to you how you trade, right? That would have been a signal to enter the trade. The interesting thing that I want to point out is, I always go to the 30-minute chart, and that's what we're looking at now. I always go to the 30-minute chart and I mark the gathering spot, right? And that's just a consolidation area. I call it the gathering spot, right? Look how from 12:30, 1:30, 2:33, SPY just did this range right here. It traded in the gathering spot in this zone, right? As soon as you could have set your alert, right? As soon as it broke past this place or maybe this place, you could have got in it for a quick scalp all the way back up to the top of that high, which was at 516 here. And that's why it's important for us to mark those gathering spots and trade the breakout. So trade once it break past that point, right? And it's totally up to you how long you stay in it. If you're comfortable with your profit, if you're like me, I like to scalp, go in, get it, and get out, right? But again, this market today has been interesting. This is the spot on a 5 minute chart. And as you can see, I have a lot of alerts marked, right? But ultimately, if you can see SPY, oh, I always do that. The SPY had some gathering spots, which is here. I'm going to take these off because the market is closed. I don't need them now. We had some gathering places or the consolidation areas, and we could have very well waited on those and traded the breakout. There's one. There's the breakout. There's two. There is the breakout. This would have been a better move here, waiting past this place here. You could have set your alert here above this at the 513.30 and traded it all the way up, right, until it start gathering again. So that's the most that's important, making sure you're able to identify your gathering spots or your consolidation areas and getting in your trade and paying attention to what your MACD is doing, which is here, and how it's moving and how it's separated. The lines are separated versus closer together right here. So the SPY would have been a good trade, even though it looked as if this morning it was trying to take us to the downside, which it did here. It looked like it was going down. But when it started moving to the upside here, and that showed a shift. That's why you always have to pay attention to your charts. We can do pre-market prep and it could change. And I normally try to do those early morning about 8, but it could very well change at 9:30 when the market opens, right? But it kind of gives us an idea as to how the market is moving or how the stock itself is moving, right? This is Tesla, and Tesla is interesting today, right? This, looking at it on the 30-minute chart, yeah. Pre-market, it ran up to 175.67, 175.67 pre-market. That was about 5 o'clock this morning. Well, we never got back to that range, right? Which is interesting because Tesla normally runs, the ATR for the day is $8 and some odd cents, $8.41. Tesla didn't run $8.41 today, which is interesting for Tesla because Tesla normally exceeds its ATR. That means it normally goes beyond that $8.41. It seems like the high of the day was 172.82 and the low of the day was 167, around the 167.42. So it ranged from 167.42 up to 172.82, which is not a lot for Tesla in my opinion. So look at how, if you didn't this move here, right? If you didn't get in the at the open and ride this to the downside, if you didn't get in this move, right? Or as it reversed here, you could have got back in and traded up to here or here, whichever one, you know, your tolerance level, here or here. But if this sideways movement, it's just not, in my opinion, it's hard to trade those because you can't go in and out, up and down. You're really going sideways. That's why it's easy. It's best to look at a higher time frame to see where your candles are in reference, you know, from a wider view, from a longer view is what I like to see. And this is Tesla on the 1 hour. You can see that we consolidated, or this is the gathering spot, meaning we didn't do much outside of this here, up and down, up and down. And again, I don't do well trading that. If you're okay with that, whatever works best for you, let me say that. So what's interesting about Tesla is it opened at 172, I believe, 172.35, somewhere around there. Yes, it opened at 172.35. The high was 172.82, which is not far from where it opened. The close of Tesla today is my concern. We closed at 171.32, which is under where we opened this morning. So that's something to think about. And we have economic data. Well, the FOMC rate decision is tomorrow. That's concerning. And the Fed minutes at 2:30, between 2:33, somewhere around there. That's going to be concerning. So the way that the market is moving, again, I learned better from patterns. It's showing me that something could reverse, and I do mean to the downside, in my opinion. But I always say trade what you see. You know, we can say it today and tomorrow coming, it's a totally different scenario, right? Trade what you see. I was able to make a decent profit off of SMCI. Again, I was into the downside, and this morning it opened and declined. You know, this bottom here was the exit for me at the 863, and then I entered again somewhere, and I scalped it to the downside. I think it was here to the downside, and I was okay with that profit. I did not swing this again, only because, you know, again, it could be up today, down today. This one moves really, really interesting. So this was a good trade for me to the downside, right? So NVIDIA is one of those. Wait a minute. This morning when we were looking at it, it showed that it was declining, and that's exactly what it was doing, right? And as with the SPY, we got this movement back to the upside. The market opened, it bounced off resistance and came down, consolidated just a little bit, right? And then we back at the 5 and 50 crossing, MACD cross. That would have been your entry to the upside for this trade here. But again, we trade sideways. I don't trade sideways. If you're okay with that, especially if you have weekly options, if you're okay with that, that's how you trade, right? So here is my entry for the video. Once it got above this, I would have watched it to the upside. However, I know we would have had trouble here and trouble here. If I would have entered the trade and it started getting rejected in this area, I would have gotten out of the trade, because that means my why. I always ask, what's my why? If it's going against my why, then I need to get out. That means I got in thinking that it was going to continue up because it was making higher highs. My MACD gave me a signal here, and my 5 and 50 gave me a signal here, but because of the consolidation, I don't like that. I would wait. If I would have waited on the high of this candle to enter, this ATR trailing stop is trouble. That's resistance. This ORB high, that's resistance. That's trouble. So I would have entered, and if it would have came back down, I would have gotten out of the trade. But if it would have continued up here, I would have stayed in the trade until I seen this inverted hammer here, and I would have been out. That would have been my deciding factor. You know, one, I went in, you know, because I had some resistance overhead, and if I would have scalped it from one point to the next point, one of the things I try to remind myself of is, don't be greedy, be grateful. Except, you know, if you got a small profit, take that small profit. That's better than a big loss, right? take your profits and enjoy that and live to trade another day, right? And if you're in an all cash account, and we're going to talk about that, right? If you're in an all cash account and you say, well, I only have a few trades that I can take a day, well, you rather be in profit in a trade than to blow your account and lose on every trade, right? So you know what your risk tolerance is and where you are with your profit levels. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the trades that I take. I try not to overthink it and say, okay, I'm going to stay in for this long move. Well, guess what? Just because you're staying in that long move, you can lose it all, right? So again, nugget for today is be grateful and not greedy, right? So we looked at Tesla, we looked at SPY, we looked at SMCI, and ARM is another one that I was watching today. And the reason for watching this one, and I am in a swing for this one, and again, y'all, I've been doing more swing trading these last few days, and I don't even understand why, because I normally don't do that, right? But looking at the daily chart, and I did a video on this one with gaps to fill, ARM has a downside gap to fill. And I bought myself some time, so I don't have this week's expiration. I have next week's expiration. But based on the way that the charts are going, we're under the 5 EMA. It looks like we came up to try to test this 20 and got rejected. Right now, it closed at 124.59. It could fall all the way down here to the 111.25. And if, it's right there at the ATR trailing stop, which is at the 109.25. 109.25, yes, and the 50 was at 111.25. Wow, okay. So we could very well come all the way down to this point, and if we break this, we could very well come down and fill that gap, which is right there at the 200 EMA, which will possibly hold that up as support, possibly. But again, that's down at the $80 range. The stock now is at 124.59. That's a big gap down. That's a big drop down, let's say that. So that's the only reason for my swing in that. And as you can see, I bought time because the stock only moves $8.08 per day, and to get to this here is more than $8, right? If we're at 124 and 109, that's more than the $8 range. So yeah, that's something to think about, y'all. And as you can see, I always go to my ATR. That's the average true range of how much a stock actually moves per day. That's something to be mindful of. Let me say that. I was thinking of trading Google, and y'all, I normally like to study the charts and study the stock before I trade the stock. And when I thought about Google and the gap that it had to fill to the downside, and I was looking at all of that, right? Google ran all the way up, got rejected, and I entered here, and y'all, when I seen it, I said, I can't do it. I'm just not used to that sideways thing. I can't do, because it came here and it wasn't really doing anything. I got out of the trade. I didn't lose anything. I didn't make anything, but my decision was, because I feel like it was going sideways, I decided to exit the trade, right? So with that being said, you have learning to trade. You got to be able to make your decisions quickly. When it goes against your why, get out. It's okay to take a small loss because you can make that up versus blowing your account and having a big loss, right? That's something to think about. So yeah, today has been an interesting day, but it's okay. We learn and we grow. So tomorrow, again, we get information, the Fed rate decision. That's going to be an interesting day. I will be trading Tesla tomorrow because I see, I just see Tesla's Tesla. And if you get in at the right time with Tesla, you can make some decent profits. Let me say that. So y'all, I hope this video is very, very helpful to you. Listen, we learn and we grow today. Again, this is our daily recap, looking at the markets and seeing, what can we learn. I hope that everyone made money today. If not, tomorrow's a new day. We're going in with the fresh mindset and looking at the new opportunities, right? So yeah, y'all, listen, thank you so much again for listening. Until next time, y'all, be blessed as well as a blessing unto others.